Good evening, everybody. What's up, fella? Oh, we got 10 hands this evening. We're gonna excuse the Detroit in them. Yeah, y'all have seen Dr. Simmons before, but as we're jumping in, good to see y'all. Love just Chris, good to see you. Glad you're traveling safely. Let's stay organized as we do this work. How y'all feeling, brothers? How y'all feel?
Well, I'm good. I'll just say, as I say every week, I'm blessed. We have shelter, we have water, we have housing. We're in good shape. So I like to always say that first so that you can know that you have gratitude every day.
Gratitude is
also just say, the quickest thing I could say about this week, I took some time off. You know how we always talk about self-care.
Yeah.
And whatever.
You actually did it. You didn't just talk about it.
I laugh at y'all with your self-care thing usually, because even when I go on vacations, I'm not really on vacation. I'm still checking messages and whatnot. I made myself this time around be like, nope, I don't care. I don't care.
You really unplugged.
Listen, there was stuff that was coming in from different directions or whatnot, and I could see ticklers popping up, and I just didn't care. I did not care. Also, I want to say I went out to San Francisco, and that's a good place. That's a good place to just you're out on the water. Like we took a boat tour. We did touristy stuff, That's a good way to erase all that stuff, to not even care what's on your phone. So I did it. And I just want to say, for everybody who says that like San Francisco is dying and dead and, oh my God, it's a shell of what it used to be.
It is. It absolutely is.
It absolutely
is. They got rid of all the Negroes. Absolutely.
Listen, as a tourist, let me tell you, it's so terrible that you can have whatever kind of food you want. You can have good wine on the water. You have great weather. You have lots of things to see. You got boats. You got everything else. So if that's what a dying city looks like, let mine die any day now. Because I want it to be as dead as San Francisco was. I thought that the whole time I was there. Now, listen, I'm not going to say that there's not people sleeping on the ground in places or whatnot, and there's not some strange smells coming out of certain corners. But the city's mostly good. Anyways, I took self-care. That's my week update. I took self-care real this week.
Good for you. And that takes discipline. Good for you. Good for you. What's up, Doc? Detroit.
What's good? Glad to be here. Can't wait for that first week of the NFL season.
Man, try again.
I think we're gonna have an introduction to some people. Welcome back to the NFL. We might be moving up from semi-pro to NFL this week.
For the people watching,
obvious that week.
I'm assuming that the Lions are starting off playing the Eagles. This is a lot of inside baseball. Is that the correct assumption?
That's correct.
That's incorrect. They not playing anything. They gonna be there. Wow. They coming to visit the stadium. I don't call what Detroit does play. But yeah, what about you, Cole?
I'm good, man. I'm blessed. Eyes are healing really well. I should have did LASIK so many years ago. I might take some drops while we and I got to just do that. These lights, I can feel them a little bit, but man, I should have did it. Have some really dope meetings in Indy. Back on the road next week. Have a business meeting in Jamaica coming up, which I'm really excited about, and just grinding, man. But I'm happy to be here. Happy to see our guest, and happy that Big Rob is in the building. You look good, brother. The bald-headed folks is representing. But when you come on, you got to extra moisturize, because you see Ray is moisturized, brother. You know what I'm saying? You want to I need you to pay attention to the hue. You know what I'm saying? It looks good. Raymond, you look good, brother. I don't know what your name is today, but it looks good, man. I salute us being moisturized. Shout out to Sharif's elbows. Hey, can we see the elbow real quick, Reef? See, don't do that. Oh, you did better. You did better.
I got natural, and I ain't put no lotion on today. I don't think I put lotion on.
You can't light them elbows.
I don't think I put lotion on this weekend at all. Like, I'm just naturally,
man,
good skin. You know what I'm saying? Like I dress well. My skin moisturizes itself well. All that kind of stuff. What's up, bipartisan? Whatever that means. Like what? Just What you up to, bro? What are you up to? Is school over for you?
Bro, so I want to shout out Congress. They take a lot of heat for not doing any work, but I think the Senate came to a deal with regards to gun legislation. It's not major. It's not any of the
So how to
things
get a
that we.
shout out if it ain't major?
It's because it's something, right?
Something.
Like for decades, it's been nothing, and so you got to crawl before you walk in terms of how politics works in the United States. And so I just want to shout out the Senate for finally doing their job. Also want to urge folks to get out to vote
What this?
so that
What the Senate?
so that what?
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead. You good? You good?
I want people to go vote because we got two senators that we have two senators.
Senators. Got it.
Senators. We thought you said for the center for finally doing their job. That's we thought you were saying.
I mean,
I mean them too, but
that Louisiana accent came out a little
bit. Senators, because we have two that
black people always want to cut out a couple vowels in the word. You know what I mean? I get this ain't our language, but like, come on, bro. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, I totally get it. Like,
like, yo, one of these episodes, man, I just want to be able to get a full sentence out without
it ain't this one.
Talking over
it ain't this one
without yo, because damn, bro, like, yo, do you hate me that much to the point that
I love you, bro? Like this is what love looks like,
and you need to.
This is what love looks like.
What is going on here, man?
I treat you like I do my little brothers. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you
beat me up in the chat all day, like. Bro, you annoy me on Instagram. You troll me on LinkedIn. Like, what the hell? Can I have some peace for this 1 hour?
You got it. You got the floor.
You deserve it.
All right. So as I was saying, we have two senators that act like presidents, and so hopefully in November we can gain some spots. I don't know what the hell they're doing in Pennsylvania, but it looks like Mehmet Oz is going to be the senator there. But if we can gain some spots in Ohio and in Florida, we can cancel out these two Democratic nincompoops, and hopefully some progress could be made. But thanks for checking in, Reef. I appreciate you.
No, man, it's good to hear just like what y'all thinking about, what y'all up to, what's on your mind, all those kind of things. You know what I mean? So, look, I was really excited, and again, Stuart, thanks for bringing up this idea. As many of you know, especially those who are in the Patreon, we put some ideas together. Cole was working on the code, like what does it mean to be on code, and we all wrestle with that idea from different angles. And the Patreon, our patrons were able to get our early access to what we were able to publish. And then we said, hey, you know what? We should start talking about this more. Like, what does it mean? And so today we're really going to talk about, like, what does it mean for Black men who are educating, Black men educators? What does it mean to be on code? Today we saw like a clip of a Black man educator who was not on code, not at least on the code that we're thinking about and talking about. And hopefully I don't even really want to show the clips. I didn't even ask Josh to do it, but it might make sense to do when you teach, sometimes you give an example and a non-example, just to really, double down on what does it mean and what do we not mean. We might do that, but in the meantime,
I just loaded it. It's in the queue.
All right, appreciate you. All right, so we'll at some point, when it makes sense, we'll just take a look at a non-example of Black men educators being on code. But I thought it was really great to have brother Eric Hale, who is 2021 Texas Teacher of the Year, first Black man recognized as Teacher of the Year in Texas, which is, he ain't the first one to deserve it, but he also deserved it. And, we shout him out. He's an elementary school teacher. He has a Bachelor in Science and Organizational Leadership. And he's been doing his work, man. Like he's well recognized for his authenticity, not just talking, but actually doing the work, actually leading classrooms and leading adults. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today, I think he can bring a lot to the table. So I'm going to let's bring on Eric Hale, Texas State Teacher of the Year. 2021. I got a chance to meet him in Indianapolis last year in person, but we also, before I met him, I had seen some of his writing, some of the work that he was doing, how people were describing their experiences with him. And I was just like, you know what, this is the type of brothers that we need. And we'll get a little bit into the impact of Black men, Black educators, but particularly Black men is what our focus is. So audience, yes. Sisters too, yes, and yes. And today we're talking about Black men. All right. So let us indulge. You know what I mean?
And
so
yes.
appreciate it. Yeah. Eric Champion Hale. Good to see you, bro.
It's an honor. All you gentlemen, I was a little disappointed in your guys' conversation in the beginning because I look up to all you guys. Like I've tuned in a few times, and the cloth that you guys are cut from and the way that you guys present yourself as Black men working in the education circle represent where I'm coming from. And so I won't get too much into that, but I could definitely relate to your guys' energy. And it inspires somebody like me that goes against the grain, who is not bought from either side, who has made it this far because of hard work and truly just service to these children, regardless of color, and making things happen that they say couldn't be made happen. And so to see men like you who've walked similar paths, that inspires somebody like me. And then I'm able to inspire other teachers because we come in different varieties, and it's okay to be Black, brilliant, and bold in education. And so kudos to you guys. And it's just an honor to be here.
You said Black, brilliant, and bald or bold?
Black, brilliant, and bold.
That's what's up. Thank you, brother. We appreciate it. We appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much.
No, absolutely. Gotta be bold. I think that's a big part of it. But before we get into the code, I know you read the code and want to get it started with you and Simmons about y'all, your feelings. The four of us have spoken about it a lot, came together working on it, tore it apart, put it back together. But want to hear before we jump into it, what got you into education, Eric? Like, what led you to decide to lead a classroom? Chris talks about it a lot, like all the challenges of teaching. How do we, how does somebody even become interested in a field that is not only challenging, but it's in some ways it can be an oppressive experience if you're in the wrong, we're talking about like right seat on the right bus. So many Black men find themselves or feel that they're in the wrong seat, on the wrong bus, in the wrong school, all those type of things. So what led you there and what has kept you there?
Be honest with you, what led me there was I had a very rough upbringing, very traumatic upbringing. And the school that I went to, they gave me nothing but sympathy and apathy. What I needed was help. And also, I represent those brown and Black children that were failed forward through their public school education. So I teach with a chip on my shoulder. So I teach trying to become the educator I needed when I was a student. I'm angry that I didn't receive the love and care and support and encouragement that I needed to be my best self, or to realize, or to even dream about what I could be. So I'm truly here from the grace of God and the prayers of my ancestors, but I teach based on what I needed, what I didn't receive. And I refuse not to give back to my community of just brilliant children who are going through traumatic experiences, regardless of their race or nationality. So, I teach angry. I know the system of oppression that they're up against. And so it's my calling to fight. And that's why I've stayed in the classroom. And it's just kind of like, to quote Jay-Z, like to a certain degree, like I love the hustle. I love doing things that they say people that look like me and students that I represent aren't supposed to be able to do. I love the hustle of accomplishing things and pushing through that ceiling. So that's why I teach.
And you'll fit right in, man. 5 out of the 6 people on screen quote Jay-Z frequently. So, you know, that's you'll fit right in. But that rage and love, you know, I think so many educators that I've met, they bring both like love for their community and rage towards the system. And if you can mesh that, you know, and be effective, right? Like not just, you know, rally and blah, 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 you know, and just like not pushing for student outcome. So, you know, that's dope. And you also spoke to something that I've heard a lot, like becoming a teacher you wish you had and knew you needed, you know, for the next gen. I want to jump right in, and then right after him, Dr. Simmons, you know, what was your first takeaway from the code, particularly the code, Black men educators being on code? Those who downloaded it, that's I think it starts on page 12 in the you know, in our ebook. But what was your major takeaway, or one of them, Eric, the champion?
Okay, one of my major takeaways was when you were talking about the 5 R's, and we come down like the role. People don't know responsibilities. People don't know the rights. They don't know. But what really stood out to me from an educator standpoint, when I look at some of the peers and people that I've been around, when you talk about rituals, a lot of educators aren't comfortable with that. And to be honest with you, they don't value it. And so that piece right there is very strong in my classroom. And it's something that I
give an example. What's a
in.
ritual that you champion, that your students embrace, that you feel is propelling them forward?
One of the quotes that I have up on my wall is "Speak what you seek until you see what you say."
Oh wait. Oh,
say
damn.
that again.
Okay. Yeah, come on. Let's do a second pass on that one.
Whoa.
Speak what you seek until you see what you say. And so it's a no opt-out mentality. Like we are going to be the greatest. And so I'm preaching that over them from day one, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so when these kids see that they have somebody that's already has that expectation of greatness, they rise to the occasion. So it's a shared vision of success that I share with the whole community. And it's just become something that we just do. We are going to excel because we're going to put that extra work in until it becomes, it's not work. It's just like when you're working out in the gym. At first, you're able to lift 185. You keep going hard. Then that becomes 225. You keep going hard before you know it. Now you're able to lift 275 and everybody's looking at you
you're
like,
where I am. Yeah. Now
you're awesome. You're awesome. and so it's just a code of how we conduct ourselves, how we speak, how we greet people who come in our classroom, even our rules. Rule number 1, focus talking. If you're talking while I'm talking, I'll walk over to your table and I say, what you're talking about, but you're talking about what is happening in the classroom. I'm either going to say, okay, keep going. Or I'm going to say, hey, but not right now. Hold that thought because I need everybody to hear this. Rule number 2 is focus moving. I'm not going to waste any teaching time because you decided to get up and go to where the sharpened pencils are to get a sharpened pencil and you come back and you don't make a sound. I'm not going to, that's what we do. I hold you responsible. Oh, you need to go to the bathroom? I'm going to do this. You're going to go to the bathroom like a young adult, come back, sit down, and keep learning. Rule number 3 is stay ready. Stay ready for the paparazzi. I tell my kids, we are going to be the best. The camera crews are going to come in our classroom because we are going to do so well that they're going to want to know what we're doing. So my kids are always ready to introduce themselves to help teach the learning. And so it just becomes like, it's just how we move.
Got it. No, that's what's up, man. That's what's up. You know, appreciate that, particularly the rituals and that saying, man. I think that's really dope. And the part that I took away, I'll get into it a little bit later, but it's like the expectations that you have in the classroom for the students, and you don't have to be a police teacher and police them to such a level where they're like, oh, I can't think for myself. You know, like where do you practice thinking if you can't even think in your classroom, you know, about what to do? Where do you practice self-determination and self-discipline if you're not able to be self-disciplined? Somebody has to put their, you know, feel that they got to put their foot on their neck. Simmons, what about you, man? What's what was your takeaway from the code, particularly as a Black man educator?
Yeah, one, I've said this to people. I appreciated y'all putting that out because it was something that was needed, because y'all hold a particular space in education that I just think is super powerful. I just want to shout y'all out, acknowledge y'all, brothers.
Ray would say it's his idea, so don't shout too much. You know what I mean? Like Ray, he got revisionist history.
Like,
revisionist history.
I'm trying to understand if it's hate or if it's jealousy, because like I ain't nobody, bro. You ain't got to be jealous of me, yo. I'm just a regular Republican.
I'm
guy
jealous of your glasses. Your glasses are dope. I like that.
Yeah, Prada.
They are nice glasses.
Prada. Yeah.
That's what the devil wear, right?
Yeah.
I was just
hey, Eric, man, because I gotta rechannel and refocus these guys so I can protect my energy.
Oh my God.
One of the things that I want to commend you on in terms of like highlighting your rituals is that you ain't talking about no damn handshakes, and so I appreciate you.
Hey,
what's wrong with handshakes?
Hey, let me tell you about the handshake thing. Since you brought it up, when they came in and they went through the whole handshake thing and they forced the handshake. Well, because I'm authentic, I had been having different little things in the way that we move with kids in my classroom. This is like 6-7 years ago when the handshake became a thing. I had somebody come out and evaluate me and tell my principal that I was doing too much.
Wow.
The next week, I saw a teacher that didn't have the same hue as me doing handshakes, and it was the biggest thing, went viral nationwide.
Because they ain't got no rhythm.
It's so interesting how you can copy teachers in urban areas and steal their ideas and then go write a book or go do it and not look like them, and it can become the whole rage. But look how God works. The next week, the Fishman Prize came and popped up in my classroom and observed me, and then flew me out to New York, and I was a finalist for one of the best educators in America, and the only public school educator that was in the finals that year. And so that's just how it works. But things like that happen all the time.
Yeah.
There's a school in Atlanta that people spend a whole lot of money to go to. That I
Ron Clark.
Is it private or public? Oh no, wait. Oh, you talking about the dancing school? Oh, you talking about the dancing school?
I got a whole DJ booth for my classroom. We've been moving and grooving, loving and learning for a long time in the Black community, reaching these kids any way we can, connecting back to our heritage, connecting back to the African drum, and ain't nobody coming dropping $2 million off for us to start a school. You better say I stand up on a real
conversation right now. Then you know what, Eric, just open the door to a real conversation and host Sharif. May I please have a real moment with
you?
Jump
in, bro. Like this is a conversation at the dining room table.
Eric. Now, Eric, you know what that is, brother.
The dining room table.
It's because they expect you to have rhythm, brother. They're not surprised when you got rhythm. When you see somebody of a different hue and they got their own beat, it's the phenomenon, bro. They got to put that out there to give everybody else hope, bro. It's like ain't nobody surprised if you dunk. You feel me? That's all I'm saying, B. You know what that is. Everybody, when we talk about being on code with the book, which the book is about, this is where I'm about to lift up Black people. We got natural rhythm. Every time we not chasing white people and we do our own thing, it flourishes. White people take it and they make a lot of money off of it. Every time we try to chase white people, it does not work out for our people. Think about these schools that have Black leaders, but are trying to be like these white schools. And guess what? They kids not doing what they need to do. So Eric, you keep doing what you need to do, but you know what that is. Come on, y'all. We ain't got it. This ain't the show. We tap dance on that stuff, bro. You got some rhythm.
I mean, but another aspect of it is, and this looks like even in art, we see it all the time, where Black people could do something, some form of creativity, and white folks will say, "Oh, that's trash. That's underdeveloped. That's primitive." Next thing you know, they repackaged it and they're selling it. They got it in their museums or they got it in their books, and they're making money off of it. And sometimes we got some black folks when they tell them it's trash. Black folks like, oh yeah, this is our creativity. It's not that creative, right? Like, and so sometimes when Malcolm talked about like who taught you to hate yourself, it's not just yourself, it's your creativity too. It's your intellect, it's your genius. You know, it's all of those things. Someone teaches you to hate that, and then they're going to use it and monopolize it and then sell it back to you.
Bro, let's not sidestep Reef.
You just described the Jack Harlow CD.
He just decided all types of gentrification. They did it to Brooklyn. They did it to Detroit. Oh yeah, in San Francisco, they said Fillmore was trash. That had a whole bunch of black excellence. They got rid of the Negroes, and now Chris gets to enjoy it as a tourist. But they told us it was trash, and then took it back and resold to white people for 5 times the price. Come on, it's called gentrification, brother.
And I'm not completely opposed to gentrification. I just don't like too much of it. I just don't like too much of it. I've told people this all the time.
I'm in community investment.
Hey, Detroit brother. Detroit brother. I need my Detroit brother to jump in on this, brother.
I have said that.
Jump in, Detroit brother.
There should be a gentrification dial.
Oh my God!
Like you could just turn it. Yeah, you could just dial it up just to the right notch where you have good coffee and internet and some basic services and possibly. But then once you start getting into yoga and a bike lane, you've turned it too far. You got to turn it back down the dial, right. So you just need.
You come at yoga, you know, Prada Ray gonna have a problem,
bro. Here's the thing. He just likes mediocre shit, right? He don't want you to go like above and beyond. He just wants it like mediocre, like the middle.
I want it to be the comfortable middle. But I do want to say this on the last part of what y'all was just talking about, because I'm just gonna come from a different direction.
Yeah.
First of all, Ron can dance. So he should get his props. Eminem should get his props. When you the Eminem of the thing, you should get
Marshall. Ron Clark and Eminem are two different things.
Listen,
are they
not even a good pair?
Are they though?
I was about to say it.
Yeah, they are.
Saying of the Ed World game. There are some that are just better than the others in the Ed World game. And I'm just gonna say also, this is the other like little controversy that I want to throw into this is some of y'all be learning the handshakes and the dancing.
You just said,
Some of y'all be doing all the handshakes and the hip hopification of classrooms and the hip hopification of books and seminars and all kinds of stuff that y'all be out there doing. And then I pull up your numbers on your school, and ain't a damn kid in your school can read, but they could dance like hell, and they got all the handshakes and they got all the hip hopification and whatnot. And some of y'all are selling books and going on tour and shit with your bad outcomes. So I just want to be real with you,
bro. You just being messy.
I'm not being messy, bro. I'm just like trying to say the truth. There's got to be some truth telling in all these discussions. Like, we're going to be 6 black men talking. We're going to all do the choir thing where we can all say the right black thing. Listen, bro, there's some of y'all on all sides of the fence that are selling some wolf tickets, right? Some of y'all have figured out a hustle for the white folks. Some of y'all writing blackish Afrocentric books for white people to tell them how to do the handshakes and shit. And then I go up and look up your outcomes. The outcome of every school you've been in, and some of the schools that you're still consulting, and some of the classrooms that you're still consulting. And all I'm going to say is I'm going to be the only one on planet Earth and Black World that's going to call you out for the fact that was a good book.
No,
it was a good book. It was a good handshake. Yeah, that was cool. I loved it.
You're not the only one.
But you're not the only students.
First off, our lovely producer needs to know when to give somebody the full screen. Take that note, Josh. Two.
That wasn't a moment to do it. That wasn't.
But I will say this. I mean, Eric, you're obviously here because you are knocking it out the park, educating young children. You are knocking it out the park, doing your job, doing your vocation. And and we are still at the place where there's a first black anything. I think everybody on here has been the first black something, which is kind of sad in 2022 or whatnot. But just can you explain for the folks, like, what was that process like, and why specifically do you feel like they gave you that? And like, because I want educators and people trying to vet educators to be able to glean some major points from how you move and what those actual outcomes are.
Hey, and part 2 to that question, do you feel free in Texas? Well, go ahead.
Why? The question was good. The question was fine.
Nobody never said it wasn't a good question.
This is why you can't work for Pearson. You don't know how to make a good question. You don't know what a good question is.
A great question.
You just dropping names.
with lives, I take what I do very, very seriously. And so I want to be one of the greatest educators that ever lived. And so every year for the past, what am I teaching, 12 years? So I would say for the past 10 years, I look and I put things on my to-do list or goals that I want to accomplish. Thinking about, the legacy of love that I want to leave in impacting lives. And so for the last 6 years, I've been making that transition from a teacher to an educator. And so now that my mind frame is an educator, I'm thinking on things like, does me being in my school community lower the crime rate? Because we have gangs in my community. So I'm thinking of things from a community center kind of standpoint. Like how do I help everybody? How do I help the state? And so I've been on this journey, and being the state teacher of the year has been a goal for 6 years. And it was something that I said that I'm going to win this award. And so I'm working to do more and more, bring more resources, make more of an impact. And so the last, 6 years, I've been focusing on not being the best teacher in America, but the most impactful teacher in America. And those are two different things. And so when I finally got my opportunity, I put numbers on the board. Like, you can research my impact. Like, I've raised over $100,000 from the mud. I've been there when my school was hit by a tornado. So I'm not somebody that's just talking. Like, I'm actually out there. There's people that in the community that will say, like, nah, when our house burnt down, Mr. Hale was there at midnight, giving us clothes from his house, doing whatever he could. So to be honest with you, when I became a finalist, I prayed, and I had a gut check moment where I said, I'm not going to switch up and say the teacher jargon. I'm going to be real and represent real children who are going through real situations. And when you are African American, and especially African American male in education, you're like the unicorn. So I knew my resume was probably 3 times better than my competitors. And so I was just hoping that it would be God's will. So I knew that I deserved to be the winner, and God saw fit for it to happen that way for me.
But Eric, during that whole process, and you think about your career as an educator, as a Black male educator, what is your message to other Black male teachers in terms of their longevity and kind of staying with it? Because it's, as you noted, it's a hard road based on the things that you've experienced. Like, what's your message that you would give to them, and what would you say to them?
This is the one profession where you can be whatever superhero you want to be. And whatever your personal superhero is, you need to bring that Black joy and your ancestors and your roots with you. I don't turn down my Blackness. Now, I happen to teach in the barrio. I teach in the Hispanic hood, and I have mostly Hispanic kids, and I have a little bit of Black kids and very few white kids, but they're all going through traumatic experiences and high levels of poverty. But I don't turn down my Blackness.
You don't
to
shrink
appease others. I bring the joy of me into my classroom. Right? You can be pro-Black without being anti something else. I love all my kids. I bring the Hispanic culture into my classroom. I go out of my way to find Hispanic leadership so the kids that they can see somebody that looks like them. I bring in white speakers. I bring in people that love my kids and are trying to make a positive impact in their lives. So I would say you have got to have a theme. You don't have to downplay who you are and your heritage and your special gifts and talents that you bring into the classroom. Mr. Hale is nutritional for all students of all colors. There's studies out right now that say that having one black male teacher improves the scores of all the children.
And not just the scores either. Not
right.
the traditional scores.
Like life outlooks.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the biggest things that I see new teachers, they don't do is make that connection with authenticity with the children. See, when you're dealing with children that are in poverty or living a zombie lifestyle or living traumatic experiences, the one intelligence that they have through the roof is being able to read people, because they're living in situations where they got to be able to read people.
Got to be able to do
so if you come in as a phony, they can run you right up out of there. I don't care what grade level you're going to teach. But if you come in there real and you say, hey, this is what I'm into. So I bring the music in. And first it was like, okay, the kids like the music. Then it was like, well, it's hard for me to find instrumentals that I like that are clean. Then I said, well, what they do? What would Knife Wonder do? Well, I'm smart. Seems like I can create an in-home studio and figure out how to make my own instrumentals. So then I made my own instrumentals after I taught myself how to DJ. But then I took it to the next level. I said, what will make these kids feel special, right? I said, what if I sit down and think about each kid that I teach and make the instrumental match how I feel about them and as an expression of my love for them? So now I have classroom mixtapes. And so now the kids get excited, like, oh my God, Carlos, that's your song, Carlos. And Carlos's song is as unique as Carlos is to me. And so now that we got this connection of love, the only difference between me and the next teacher is I get kids that should get 65%, 75, 80% on their test. Why? Because the only compensation that a kid can give you is their effort. That's how they express that they love me, by listening to me, by intently listening to what I'm trying to teach them. They show me how much they love me by their effort.
Wow.
And so we've been able to do some incredible things through love and through being authentic with my kids. I don't hide. If I make a mistake in my classroom, you know what? There's been plenty of times I've had to come back the next day, and this is to 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. You know what, you guys? Yesterday's lesson was trash. I was wrong. I didn't teach it right. I did some more research. We're gonna have to redo that again. That's all right, Mr. Hale. Everybody makes mistakes. You taught us that. That's all right. It doesn't define who you are. These are 6th graders having that conversation with me, and then we can move on.
Wow.
And so bring your best self into the classroom. If I told my kids that I used to be a black male ballerina, you know what all my kids would dress up as for Halloween? Ballerinas. Because they look up to me that much. So everybody has that level of power. Teaching doesn't look a certain way. When I used to play my music, they used to come in and be like, oh, that's kind of different. Why? Because what I consider classical music is Thelonious Monk, is John Coltrane. Oh, but it has to be Bach. It has to be Beethoven.
No, it don't.
Nah, that's not what it is in my classroom.
No, that's boring.
and just taking a stance and embracing the skills that God gave me. And so I'm sorry I'm so long-winded, but I get passionate about.
No, you know what though? I'm glad you went long on that because
you blend right in with what you blend right in.
Yeah, with Ray. Yeah. So no, but actually, like, listen, I just want to say, like, that's a lot of work that you do. No wonder you're teacher of the year. Like that level of customization in the classroom. And, you know, I can imagine there's somebody right now listening to this who wants to be a very good teacher, who's listening to that, who is racking their brain with how they can be creative and they're not coming up with answers. Right. That's what I could see. Like people listening to you right now saying, well, damn, you're special. Like you're a prodigy in that thing. Like you have a gift. Like I don't know what to do tomorrow or next week with my classroom. Right. I could hear people listening thinking that they don't have the chops to relate.
They do whatever makes them happy in their personal life and bring it into the classroom. Whatever some kind of special that they have, bring it.
But that's being your full self, being your authentic full self, right?
But that also implies that, you know, I always say to people that in order to love children and do what you do, brother, you have to love yourself first. Right. And there's a challenge. And I think in the book, it talks about mindset. right?
Mhm.
And I think in that particular chapter that Sharif wrote, this whole idea of mindset and rejuvenating is what you're describing, right? And so I want to encourage people to read that and then align it with what you're describing, because this idea of mindset, and you know, I don't want to get all the teacher education people mad, but they don't teach about mindset to love Black children in schools of education in America, right?
Mhm.
They
No,
don't
they
teach
preach
that
anti-blackness plenty of times.
yeah, plenty of that. And they don't teach it in a lot of these other teacher prep programs. So it's not unique to teacher preparation, traditional teacher ed programs, but the whole idea of a mindset isn't something that is taught. They go with the random ed psych, curriculum and instruction, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, there's no test to say like, okay, well, do you love Black children? And if you don't love Black children, even if you score high on the Praxis or whatever state random test they have, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should teach Black children.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
the test about whether you love Black children is once you get in front of them.
That's
and plenty of people fail that test. That's
right.
the test. It's like, hey, we don't know how you feel about these guys. Maybe we do. You said it in the interview, probably, but they disregarded it. Threw Black kids in front of you anyway, and that's the test. And you know, folks, they pass it if it's scored on your level of anti-Blackness. They get flying colors in that.
I want to ask y'all a question, just so the educators on here, because I've heard this before. You got to go Black children. Got to go Black children. I don't know if that's true 100% about teaching. I don't know if I need my teacher 100% to love my kids. I'm saying literally, I don't know. I'm saying this is not like a rhetorical point.
I've said that before.
I'm literally not sure whether or not I believe whether or not you have to love, or whether you just have to be really good at what you do, whether you love my kid or not. Like I haven't closed the loop on what I think about that, but you are actually educators. So I'm going to ask you, like if absent a teacher who hates Black children, who has an active hate, like active cultures and yogurt has like that in their gut. Like if you take that, do they still need to love Black children to be efficient and effective and good with their craft and their skill to have success with my kid? As long as they don't hate Black children.
Yeah.
Do they really have to love Black children?
I'll just throw this out there quick. Go ahead, Bray. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think you can look at that twofold, right? You can look at it from the perspective of, you know, if they don't hate Black children, then at least they're going to be better than the folks that hate Black children, right? So that already puts them like ahead of the game. And, I mean, it already puts them ahead of the game in terms of like, you know, where the folks that hate Black kids are, right? But I don't hate like, y'all. And there's a lot of you know what? I'm yielding my time. Take me off the screen. This dude Reef, yo, I'm telling you.
No, finish your thought, bro. Finish your thought. Don't
you want to allow me to finish my thought, because every time I say something,
I promise you are allowed. You are allowed. I promise you.
Somebody getting suspended tonight. Somebody getting suspended. I don't do restorative justice on this show. I'm not a restorative justice dude. One of y'all getting suspended, or both. And it may not even be a suspension.
Eric and Robert, welcome to the show, baby. That mean y'all family, because we ain't put none of the dirt away for y'all, man. We just, hey, you come in the house, you get your own drink out the fridge. Y'all good down there? We good. Reef and Ray love each other remote on the show.
So what I'll say is this, right? There's a lot of research that supports the fact that if you love Black kids, then kids are going to learn from you, and they want to learn from you, and they have that desire to learn from you. I don't really know any of our kids that learn with a level of enthusiasm from folks that they don't love, right? And so like what I would do is, as opposed to putting that data point on teachers, I would then put that data point on students, right? Like, and then I would ask students, can you learn from someone who you feel like do not love you or do not recognize the humanity in you, right? Because I feel like a lot of times we're asking teachers or we're asking adults these questions, right? But the end users should be the people that we're checking in with in terms of their understanding of how that makes them feel, how adults make them feel, and how they want to feel to be in environments that yield learning.
I mean, Charles, I would love to hear your take too, because you said you know what I'm talking about when I say that question. I know as a parent, I say to my kids, I don't care whether you like that teacher or not. You know, your job is to get a good grade in that class or whatnot. And my kids will tell me, well, I don't like, she's mean or she this and she that or whatever. And in back of my head, I'll be thinking, I interacted with that person. I kind of probably agree with you. But still, I don't care whether you don't like that person or not. Your job is to get good grades. But what were you going to say, Charles? Like,
no, I get what you were saying in the sense of a lot of people rest on that. But I love black kids, but you can't teach worth the damn. Like, this is the thing, right? Like, it's like sometimes you got to be really good at your job, and sometimes people rest on that. Now, I've had a handful of good teachers, and some of them, like Mr. Brown was on, obviously loves his kids, right? Obviously. But there were some that was kind of crotchety and probably not the nicest and didn't say that they loved everybody's kids, but they understood what their job and what their role was. Now, if that person is teaching me math or that person is teaching me Spanish and I got that thing, I'd much prefer that person who ain't overdoing it and saying she loves black kids every day and all that, but can't teach, versus somebody that's like, look, my job is to do this, is to instill this in you and kind of keep it pushing. When I was training educators, and my educators did pretty good in their cohort across the country, they was top 3 in the country. What I would say is that, like, show your love by getting good at your craft. And I think that, like, what I heard Eric kind of say was, I got so good at my craft that I actually had time to do these other things and I could do this stuff first. But I bet if you push Eric and you ask him, you know, he will definitely let you know, but I only could do that because I had a handle on what my job was. Like, for a lot of teachers that are now getting a lot of love on social media and stuff like that, one, we don't ask them how well they did in their school, and two, like, that's how they're getting that love, because they talk about and they project this love, but the love is not translating to actual results. So yes, if you can love your teachers, love your students and do that, but the best way to love kids is to be really good at your job, man. It's to be really good at your job. There will be a lot of white teachers. I had a staff, and in that, and I'll be very quick because I know Ray is clocking me on this one, right? Like, I got you, Ray. I'm with you, brother. I think it's good for the show. There's a lot of teachers that would, like, especially white teachers, that will let our kids off, or they want to be liked in the moment. They want to be the teacher, the white teacher that all the black kids love and all the black kids hug, but they still can't fucking read. They still ain't ready for the world. And what I would I would give an assignment. And then sometimes those teachers would try to, like, give my kids a break. Stop. Don't ever do that again, because I know what's facing this black young man in the world once they leave you. You're not going to be with them next year. And if you're doing teaching for that reason, so you can get hugs from black kids and feel good and feel down and know how to do some handshakes, this ain't the job for you. I need you to help prepare our kids for the world that they're about to come to. So that's what I meant when I said, I understand what you're saying. Ain't nothing wrong with loving your kids, but we say it so much and we give so much love and credence to it that we forget to ask, well, how good is your kids doing? Where did they start and where did they finish? Like, let's get back to brass tacks. You know, like when we have a ball player on and Ray will say, hey, I love you. That's great. I love that you played hoop. What was your numbers in college? Could you actually ball? And I think that we should carry that same mentality over to educators that over-index on they love for black kids. If everybody loving black kids, the fucking numbers ain't showing it.
But can't both things be true at the same time?
And Rob from Detroit, I feel you. I'm not, and that's why I wanted to say, ain't nothing wrong with loving your kids. It's a beautiful thing if you do. Mm-hmm. But saying you love kids in lieu of actually doing your job is not love. It is you making you feel good. And because people are afraid to say
how about both things should be too? They both should be true. To your point, Robert. To your point, Dr. Simmons, maybe they both should be true.
I agree.
Yeah, not they both could be true.
I think when we sidestep the need to love our kids, we forget our history as black people, as black teachers, and thinking about the work around other mothering, right? And so I'm not suggesting that we sidestep results, but I think it's a both and conversation, or else we just simply become addicted to the things that Pearson and all these standardized testing companies want us to get addicted to, which are test scores. Those things are important, and I'm not suggesting they aren't. All I'm saying is that we can't sidestep the legacy of what happened pre-Brown v. Board of Ed.
Absolutely.
Right? The basis of education in the black community at that point in time was making sure that young people could read and write so they could navigate white supremacy, but they had to do that because they had black educators that loved them. So I'm simply suggesting that all of this is true. I just think that the failing of the education of teacher preparation programs and alt-route programs is that far too often they skew one way or the other, and they don't do any of those things. So,
Dr. Rob, can I respond to him? Because I want to just make sure, because I'm not saying that we shouldn't love our kids, and I'm not saying that didn't happen. Yeah. But to stick it with the basketball analogy, it's a lot of people that love hoop. It's a whole bunch of people, but it's a privilege to be in the NBA. You can love hoop all you want, but if you ain't producing, you're not going to see the court. And you can be a teacher and say you love all you want, but if you're not producing, you shouldn't be on the fucking court because it's too much at stake for our kids, and where I really felt. And so I don't disagree with nothing you said, Dr. Rob. I want to just be clear that I wasn't saying that. And I think that they still should know our history. You know what I mean? I just want to just be very clear is that the brother is also saying that I'm showing my love by making sure these kids are prepared for the world and they can do what they came to my class to do. No, listen, man, if my kid come home and say they're having a whole bunch of parties and they're having a whole bunch of fun, but you in the 5th grade and you still read on the 2nd grade level, I don't need that. Ain't love to me. That's not love to me. Love is doing your job.
I think I want to push back on one thing on this from a parent perspective. You guys are all educators, and I asked that question as a parent. Like, do you really need to love the child? But just let me say very briefly where it's coming from. I have 3 kids in public schools, and then not a single one of them is on track to have an Eric Hale in their entire 12-year career. Not a single one of them. I'm just being real with you, right? So we're up to at the bottom grade, we're at 6th grade, and at the top grade, we're at 10th grade of my 3. That's the 3. None of them are on track to ever have had a Eric Hale in their 12-year experience. So as a strategy of how I am preparing them to work with schools and classrooms and teachers, I have to keep that in mind. They're not going to have a Dr. Simmons or an Eric Hale or an El Mekki or a bipartisan Ray leading. But
you also acknowledge that they would be. But you also acknowledge that their experience would be infinitely better if they did have an Eric Hale.
If they did, but they're not. This see, like,
yeah, I mean, so you're making sure that they are. Uncle,
right?
Yeah, I mean, you're making sure that you're making sure that they are prepared, right? But at the same time, think about how much you are also supplementing the deficits that they are experiencing, right?
That's right.
Yep. So picture that, because to me, I think sometimes, listen, love gets thrown around, and I agree with everything that people saying. I think I'm just coming at it from different angles, right? And back in the day when I started teaching in the 90s, I didn't talk about love. I didn't start talking about telling my children that I loved them until much older, when I was just felt comfortable. I wasn't raised in all of that, like, oh, love this and love you. I didn't use that word, but I knew what love was. Love was, man, I felt responsible to and for them. I felt responsible to them and for them. And if I love somebody, then I am responsible for the outcomes. Right. And to paraphrase Dr. King, when he talked about love without power is sentimental and anemic, if they weren't leaving my classroom more powerful, then it ain't love. That's not love. That's sentimental and it's anemic and it's bullshit. Right? Real love, authentic love. And I agree. Like, everybody throws that word around so much. And I think more people get in touch with their feelings and all of that. And
what word? Bullshit? What word
love,
they throw around?
Love. That's why you cursing on air, bro. The idea of love is now like this thing, and people just want to say it and and I love my kid. I love them so much. Like, I watch you teach. You don't love your kids, actually. You really don't.
I feel the exact same.
I saw your lesson
plan. Point I was making.
You don't love your kids. You love your,
You love that paycheck.
You love the love you get from telling people you love black kids. That's what you love.
You like that. It's performative. How often is it just performative and not also, real? Like,
but to push back, and I know we got Texas Teacher of the Year, Eric Champion.
Yeah, I want to hear his point, because
we got some black teachers that don't love their kids either. That don't love black kids either.
Absolutely.
Ding 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 ding.
We gotta name
what
that.
Can you say? Every brother ain't a brother, right? Like, so.
Yes.
Hey, so
you and Chris saying the same thing, right? On that one, I feel like that's where Chris was going. That every because you black don't mean that you love your kids. That's how I took that earlier statement. Go ahead. I agree with you, right?
We gotta cue this up though, because we so I guess I'll just.
So a teacher and a student were arguing at my school today, and he said this.
I'm talking to your ass. That's who I'm talking to. Nah, you know me. You know me, and you know I ain't for the games. Stop talking to me, Gayana. Call your daddy then. Tell your daddy come up here and talk to me then. You stop talking to me. No, I'm telling you, stop talking to me. Tell your daddy to come talk to me. Tell your daddy to come talk to me. Nah, go dig him up and tell him to come talk to me.
All right, just for context for folks that may not have heard this or may not have seen this on TikTok, it's viral. Over 3 million people have seen it. And so this is a black teacher that's going back and forth with one of his students. Clearly, there's a level of familiarity between the student and the teacher. But at the end, he's, advocating for her to go get her father. And she lets him know that her father is dead. And then his response to her is go dig him up and bring him up here, right? And so just want to be clear on what was said, the context or whatever, in terms of if folks want to respond to that. But like I was saying before, just because you're a black male teacher or just because you're a black teacher doesn't mean that I want you in front of my kid, right? And so I think that there's a certain level of respect that you need to have for your community, a certain level of respect and dignity that you need to have for the profession in order for me to want you to be in front of my child. And last point is that I think that when you got a black man that's treating a kid that way or acting in that kind of manner, then that is far more harmful than any white person, because there's an expectation that white people don't give a shit about our kids anyway, right? And so I'll leave it there.
And I don't know if he's a teacher or what role he plays, but he's an adult or supposedly adult, although you can't tell. I hear children say, I think they said Chapman. I think they said Mr. Chapman. Like, you know what I mean? Like children. I see two other adults trying to, you know what I mean? Like get him to, that level of emotional immaturity. I don't care what the child said. To be screaming and yelling and modeling, most importantly, modeling in front of other children how to disagree, how to be upset, how to whatever it is. Because we're not saying like nobody gets upset with children. Like sometimes children are disrespectful. But what do you model? Like, okay, when you're disrespectful, this is how I engage with you. This is how I engage with you as a human being, as someone else's child, as a member of this community. Like, how do you look at a child and a member of the community? Talk about the humanity. Somebody talked earlier about like the humanity, and even everything before, just like what he said at the end was just, I mean, literally, I got like just something in my chest and stomach. You know what I mean? Like just, and it's the third time I saw it, because the first time I couldn't understand what he said at the end. When I was like, and before that, he had already lost me. Just the screaming back and forth, stop talking. Like, come on, man. Come on. And I don't know if he's a teacher. I don't know what his role is, but he's an adult, supposed to be an adult. That's the role. That's the number one role. Am I
the only one that's here that went to schools like that? I just want to be clear. Like that, I've seen them type of exchanges before. I went to school in Oakland. Our SROs, like, I don't know if he was a teacher. I don't know if he was an SRO. And for the people listening, SRO is like a student resource officer or basically security at the school or whatnot. But at Westlake Junior High School, bro, when like shit was getting gully and going down, them SROs they got gully back with you, man. Like I'm just saying that that was 6th through 9th grade at the time. I mean, yeah, I think when you take that, I'm not making an excuse for it. That stuff happens.
Saying it's more common than people might think. It ain't.
Absolutely.
No, 100%. I mean, I've heard stories like that.
Yeah.
Listen, I know a teacher that ended up fighting a student. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so yes. I mean, but this is again what our children are subjected to in schools. And then we wonder, why is this why is this child disengaged, right? And if black children have experienced anti-blackness as early as 3 and 4 years old, then it's almost self-preservation for them to build up a wall and try to protect themselves. Eric, what was I don't know if you saw that before, but what was your
that right there is one of the biggest things that I'm up against, because I am just by nature, my presence is loud and I do command the room. When you see things like that, that sets black male educators of a certain type back 3-4 years, because that's what they expect of us.
3 or 4.
If not more, if not
decades.
more. because that's what they expect of us. And the fact of the matter is, in America, a lot of black kids and brown kids and children who are just impoverished, school is another place where they don't feel safe. So they don't feel safe in school, and then they go home to unsafe situations. They're not getting healing from these schools. A lot of times they're going into another situation of hurt. And so if you are somebody that doesn't love kids that don't look like your own, maybe you're not from that community, or you live in a different area of town, and you see that, that gives you a free pass. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. That's their own people doing that. Mm-hmm. So why would you ever think of your racist practices or what you're doing on a daily, which is not that bad? So now you don't have a conscience anymore. He just gave everybody a free pass to treat children that are already behind the 8 ball worse. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because they're like, well, how can you get on me when this is a black man talking crazy like an animal to a young black woman? Everything about that makes me sick to my stomach. And my neighbor tried to show it to me the day before the podcast, and I said, I don't even want that in my spirit. I hadn't heard about it yet. I said, I don't want to see that before the podcast. I just found out about this today, like literally 15 minutes before we were about to get on the air, and I refused to see it because I didn't want that in my spirit. But
it's reality though. Like, I mean, like this is the last thing I'm gonna say about all this. We could talk in platitudes, but there's a strange concoction, a soup of things that are going, a confluence of different things that are taking place in schools right now that don't have any easy answers to them. I could show you lots of pictures of teachers, lots of these videos of teachers saying, I'm retiring right now, or I'm leaving the classroom. Mm-hmm. It's the worst I've ever seen it. The kids are the most disrespectful I've ever seen. The school's the most out of control I've ever seen. Nobody's paying attention to what we need as educators and mental health professionals. The students are saying the same things. I could send you 12 hours of school fights because there's whole channels.
I don't see teachers get bopped upside the head live.
I was about to say, there's like teachers who love their students who are getting beat up and stuff. Yeah. Like if you go on Reddit, there are entire threads and channels of school fights, girl fights, boy fights, teacher fights, teacher I'm retiring TikToks. This is the worst it's ever been. Parents are unrealistic. The community's unrealistic. People are putting too much on us. Like there's no simple story here. There's no easy story. Some of these schools are off the hook. And if we keep pretending like, oh, it's just that the teachers are racist and nobody loves the kids, and the kids are somewhat semi kind of like perfect, or they're just normal kids or good kids, and they're not experiencing anything that makes this time any different than 10 years ago or 15 years ago or at my old age, the way it was when I was in school was bad enough when I was in school. There are people right now who are saying to you, who are in the classrooms, everybody outside the classrooms are being unrealistic about what's really going on in classrooms and in schools, especially with the disrespect thing. Yeah. There are teachers that love their kids that are going into schools tomorrow that might get, as Charles just said, bopped on the head, and you only need that to happen once or twice before you become a racist, a black racist. You could be a black teacher, start talking about your students in ways because there's all this stuff going on that people are not talking about.
Well, part of this is when you look at the history of education in America, it never was intended to be successful for all children. Our starting point, the system was broke. And so now you have years and years and years, and the demographics in education have changed, but we are the one profession that has chosen to refuse to adapt, to innovate, to meet the needs of all children. The public school American education system wasn't set up for all children to be successful. It wasn't. And so because nobody wants to talk about the boogeyman that's out there, we can never solve the problem.
Well, some people think the boogeyman is the home life, though. Because everything you just said, I'm shaking my head to and I'm saying true. Yes, absolutely. No doubt. The school system wasn't made for us or by us or with us in mind. The text has been racist. The canon is racist. It's actually the schooling, public schooling itself is an instrument of social control of the United States government, right? And all the factions that actually earn money off of those professions are actually complicit in the social control of an entire group of people. And it's getting worse because now they're passing laws that are like mind control laws and all that stuff. So yes, let's just say yes. But as Dr. Simmons said earlier, 2 things can be true. And in this case, maybe 10, 15 things can be true at once. Some of the kids are bringing stuff into schools that the most prepared, the best prepared, and the best best school or whatnot is not equipped to handle, even if they weren't racist, right? Like there's some stuff going on in the lives of children. So everybody's failing children. Everybody's failing.
Everybody's failing children. The breakdown of the home. You can see the breakdown in the home even when I've sat in some parent-teacher conferences. And I mean, I was blessed to do a lot of my growing up, and I was raised by, my grandmothers and her sisters and just a lot of wisdom in the community. A lot of that wisdom is not in the communities anymore, and that's heard in children. So a lot of times when I sit and I have these parent-teacher conferences, and I don't know who the mama is because grandma is like 39 now. I've literally been in parent-teacher conferences where the mother and the grandmother and the mother are talking about leaving parent-teacher conference and dropping the kids off so they can go to the club together. So you got grandma is 39 and then her daughter is like 24. That's tough. So you got a lot of children that are doing the best they can, that are raising themselves.
Why is that? Why is that tough? Because that sounds like you're blaming the victim, and I don't want us to. I don't want people to walk away with that message that I'm okay with the victim being blamed in terms of like.
That's not blame though. That's just he's speaking a reality that exists.
I'm not blaming, but I mean, the way that I conduct myself now at 42 is different than I conducted myself at 29. And I still don't conduct myself probably the way some of my elders, some like my mentors or men that have got a little bit more seasoning on me right now. So everybody has the right to learn and grow and change. But what I'm saying is there's a vacuum and lack of elders in our community.
Yeah, but I would just also add, and most of y'all from down south. Now, y'all ain't gonna sit up here and act like back in the day, everybody became a grandma when they were 80, right? Because there were younger folks getting married,
that's right,
having children at a very young age, right? So it can't just be an age thing, right? And it can't just be. And I get it. The pandemic has made it a whole new world. And after this, I want us to just go into final thoughts because it's we're a little over. But what I would say, it is definitely like a community thing, but I wouldn't say it's an age thing. I would say it's a community thing. Absolutely. I would say it's the racist systems that are surrounding the community, and then that we may not have adapted our ways of fighting, the organizing, all of those type of things to battle the wars that are sure to come. Because guess what? It's going to be another variant of this war 10 years from now. And are we prepared? And as the next generation, are we preparing them, or are we warring with them? And it's hard to prepare the youth for the battles to come if we are warring with them. Right. And so like I would start off with that piece. But let's go in the final thoughts, and we're going to save you for last, Eric. Dr. Simmons, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I just want to thank Eric and for his work because I know the power of Black teachers. Some of you have heard me tell the story of our oldest son, who is gifted and talented because of the advocacy of his Black teacher, who saw his brilliance despite missing the cutoff by 0.5 points or some number that was less than 1. And she advocated for him, and he's soaring and doing well in his class. So I just want to thank Eric for what you stand for as a Black educator who is delivering impact, as you know, but also cares about kids. So I just want to thank you for that. You're a good model for us to consider. So,
Dr. Cole, we're going to take care of the doctor.
Yeah, no. Well, thank you to our guest Eric for coming, and thank you to Dr. Simmons, man. It's always good to see you, brother. Always feel that kinship when you on, man. I like talking to you. I think also just to put a button in my final thoughts on what Eric said, because people like to take certain parts of stuff and run with it. I didn't see that the way that, like, I think I don't know. I saw it as naming a reality that sometimes you have to deal with as an administrator, that I've had to deal with a lot as a social worker, where there was not a clear parental figure. I call those young people education translators, and it's almost, when I was a social worker and I would go into a home that didn't speak English, but a 7-year-old was translating all this very sensitive information. I was actually one of those kids on the education tip. My parents did not have formal education. High school was, as far as my dad, then he went to the service, and then my mom's dropped out of high school. So after 5th grade, it really was me leading my own check-ins, leading my own meetings, to the point when I got to college and I needed their information from financial aid. They said, I ain't giving them white people my money. I ain't giving them white people my information. I don't know what they need it for. And it fucked me, right? So like, I didn't see it as like a super call out in a negative way. I see it as all of us that work in the education space have seen things that might be unsavory. I love my people, and I don't doubt that cats love their people. I think that, like, there are some conversations that we need to have. I wish that one needs a whole show to actually breathe the appropriate way so we can have that conversation. But hey, go read the On Code book, because the On Code book don't just talk about educators. There is a role for parents in that On Code book. There is a role for students in that On Code book. And there's a role for community organizations that are also getting tax breaks that we also need to be calling out with the same fervor that we call out teachers in school institutions, because they getting the same tax break to serve our community, and we don't hold their feet to the fire either. But I did really enjoy this conversation, and this is one of them conversations that could have went 2 hours. I just looked up and didn't even peep that we was over it. So thank you for putting together a good show, Reef. And just shout out to all my A Black Hands brothers, man. I think that sometimes people forget, because you only see us in this space, but I think sometimes people forget how busy Ray gets in his school, or how busy Sharif gets in his work around educators, or how busy Chris gets with like giving parents voices and running like organizations. And there are things that we see in that work that sometimes are not the easiest to talk about, but they need the nuance to actually breathe. I don't know if that person was a teacher. I think we should stop saying that until we know who they are, because he spoke like a SRO. He spoke like a security person, the gym coach, or the basketball or football coach that be on campus, and part of their job is to maintain order in a place where Cass was bringing brass knuckles and other things to school. I'm not giving him an excuse at all. I think that it was vile, but them students had agency, because they put that shit on TikTok where you said Ray got how many? 3 million views?
3 million views right now.
So I think the kids will be okay. I think that somebody having a conversation the next day, you know what I'm saying? But if we gonna have these conversations, and to our audience that's listening, we need to come in and take our kid gloves off and put on our actual, this is that part where people talk about how much they love the community. Part of loving our community is having real conversations and dealing with our own shit and making sure that we build the village that we need, because he was taught by somebody too. And somebody before him was taught by somebody. I've been in places, and raise your hand. You knew them SROs and them adults at school that you couldn't jump funny with. I know in my school I had them. I know I did, right? I knew who those people was on the block and stuff, man. But I thought this was a really good conversation, man. I wish we had more time, but good show, everybody.
Yeah. Mr. Ray.
Yeah, so a couple things, right? So like, I think when we start thinking about like the ages of parents without so I kind of want to name that, right? Because like I don't want any parent to come into my school and feel shame, right? So I'm talking as an administrator, and so it doesn't matter like, you know, how they show up, doesn't matter how they dress or whatever. Like my job is to make sure that our parents are treated with respect, because at the end of the day, if they don't send their kids to school, we don't have jobs, right? So I want to name that, because that's the most important thing, right? So our parents need to be treated with respect, right? And so, yeah, there's some things that we need to talk about with regards to like what's going on in our community, right? But a lot of those conversations, you know, I'm like Charles when we're talking about those kind of conversations. A lot of those conversations are like behind closed door conversations, because those conversations don't necessarily need to be had on a podcast or out in the open in order for white folks to have more fervor to dissect us even more, right? So just want to name that. Next thing is on our Twitter feed, there's something happening with this book, Ratchetdemics and Dr. Christopher Emden, right? So I want to shout out Dr. Emden for all the work that he's doing in terms of like engaging educators on the hip hop tip, because a lot of folks on our thread are talking about this in terms of like how they are engaging with students and how, you know, this curriculum is making things more impactful for students of color. So I want to shout him out with regards to that work and engaging on our Twitter thread, right? So like I think that's some dope shit, right? And then lastly, want to thank our guest Eric for coming on, man, and bringing the fire, bro. Like you know, you're the teacher of the year in Texas. Texas is anti everything, and so for you to persevere, and be named the teacher of the year, I think that is something that that is amazing and cannot be overshadowed. I put you on the same pedestal as the national teacher of the year for all states, only because of how hard it is to work in Texas and Florida and Mississippi and some of these southern states that are just anti everything. So I appreciate you, appreciate your energy, and appreciate you coming through and hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Citizen.
I'll follow up on that and say the same thing. You know, thank you both to Robert and Eric. Number one, for showing up to these type of discussions, because I think, you know, you bring light to issues and to thoughts that we should be thinking about if we're not living in the work every day. And I think we forget sometimes that there's this whole thing, this whole world of civilian people, like, who don't live in the work every day, don't live in the jargon, don't understand the methods and the things, that the thinking that goes behind the work that you all do behind the stage. So these type of discussions is a bridge between that technical world and the world of civilians, like where the rest of us, because even though I think about this all the time and write about education all the time, as a parent, I am still coming up empty on answers on some things. And I know if that's happening for me, and I think about this all the time, for parents that don't have the luxury of thinking about this all the time, that's even a worse gap. And it's the things that fall within that mystery box of the who, what, when, where, why of education will kill us. That will kill the Black mind, right? That will kill us, our good parenting. So I just want to say thank you for that, for coming on. I'll also say, like, you know, when Charles says all the time, no one's coming to save us, I think we need to hear that as not just like a line. We need to like live that as a reality, because there's so many, our salvation will be complex. The devil didn't put us in an easy box to get out of. Our salvation will be complex. And by that means everything we said is true. The system is rigged. The system is racist. The system was not built for us. The teaching isn't perfect. The learning isn't perfect. The metrics aren't perfect. We could just keep going on and on and on. And when we get done with that long line of things that are wrong and true, that we will be saying are wrong and true, there will still be work for us to think strategically about, then what are we going to do? Right? Like, what are we going to do? This is what I love about our On Code ebook, is that there's a role for everybody to play. Everybody is failing our children, right? Mm-hmm. We're all falling down on the job, not just for our own kid, but for our village mentality when it comes to all of our children, parents, community members, politicians, nonprofit leaders, leaders of big Black organizations that have big budget staffs and conferences every year. Like, we're all failing Black children. So let's just take it all together. And if it's going to be true, first of all, what I said earlier is true. I'm not going to have an Eric Hale in any of my kids' life. I've already made peace with that as a fact. I know I'm not the only one with that as a problem. Maybe there's somebody somewhere else who's living where all the teachers are Eric Hales, and God bless you if you are. God bless you if you all have teachers who are waking up next week thinking about, how can I customize songs that make my kids feel seen and heard in classroom to the point where they want to give me effort. God bless you if you're going to have that as the majority of your teachers. It's not going to happen in my life and for my kids. So because of that, I have to be thinking through, like a lot of parents, what they're listening to right now is, what do I do then? So when Charles says you are on your own, I have to be thinking about teaching, parenting, community members. There's a lot of roles that we all have to play and we have to fulfill. So I appreciate you. I have the utmost respect for you all, brothers, who are thinking about this and working on it every day. And to the parents listening, we have to keep coming together and do our best to become educated like these folks are, about what education means for our own kids.
Eric, thanks again for coming on. What's your closing thought? What do you want to leave the audience with? How can they find you? I see your Twitter handle down on the screen there. Closing thoughts, brother.
Closing thoughts. First off, I want to say that to the other educators out there, I know that I'm not any different than you. I'm not special. I keep three things in mind. And the first is accountability. I hold myself accountable for my village. I hold all stakeholders accountable for the success of these students. Next is advocacy. I advocate for myself, for my peers, for our profession as a whole, for the children, once again, for the community, and everybody needs to do that. And lastly, I'm about action. And I feel like all of the educators need to be about action. There's more that we can do. There's more that we can attempt to do to make the change that we need to see in our profession. We got to stop waiting on Superman. You'll need to wait on Superman when you got a cape in the closet. Try it on. Stay prayed up. And lastly, you're never as good as you think you are or as bad as they say you are. So I'm praying for everybody. It's a tough fight, but we got to keep pushing because these kids need us. And you are making a difference. And you'll figure it out if you keep trying. And so the best way that you can show that you love your children is the sleepless nights working on your craft to get better, to be more successful with outcomes for the students. So thank you guys for being here. Like I said earlier, I look up to all of you guys. You guys inspire me. Let me know that I'm not doing anything to keep pushing and praying and trying to get better. So thank you guys so much for this opportunity.
No, I'm grateful that you were on, and Dr. Simmons, you're always, we told you before, it's an open door. So anytime you want to just, pop through, do that. So, grateful. Really, really glad, that we started conversation. And I agree with all of you. Like this, I think so many things surfaced that were actually could be their own shows. Just how children are treated, what are the systems, who's responsible, how everybody has dropped the ball on our children, and then we're just expecting them to meet some type of expectations that we haven't supported them in getting there. And even worse is we're giving them. Chief Seattle talks about children don't inherit the earth from us, we borrow it from them. So what we borrowed, we're giving them trash, and then we're telling them to just do something miraculous and meet all these expectations. And I would say often expectations that we didn't meet ourselves when we were their age, and that's, I think, the most damning part about it, like how we look at our youth. And unfortunately, we have far too many people, and our children see it. They're as perceptive as they can be. They notice the contempt that is had for them, and not just by people who don't look like them. They experience contempt from us. And so as a community, we have to do way better. All that being said, I do just want to, I think it is so important just to talk about the impact of Black teachers, pound for pound. And we've known short term, Carolyn LeCount talked about in the 1800s how Black students needed more Black teachers. Dr. King talked about needing more Black teachers. And we know short term, a Black child that has a Black teacher is less likely to be suspended, disciplined, or expelled, or even referred for discipline. They're more likely to have a sense of belongingness. They're more likely to see themselves in the curricula. They're more likely to have access to opportunities, rigorous courses, internships, etc. It's going to be a sense of belongingness. Their parents are more likely to have a partnership with that classroom's teacher, leader, and if they have a Black teacher. And it's not just their impact in that classroom, it's also in policies, on the school culture, etc. But Dr. Constance Lindsay, who we had on the show before, and her colleagues looked at long-term impact. Hundreds of thousands of Black students across multiple states, and particularly for Black boys, almost 30% more likely to go to college. Almost, right? And almost 40% less likely to drop out of high school. There are very few interventions like a dope Black teacher, right? And that's not just me saying that, that's from the experience. And multiple things are true. Far more students experience what what those young children saw and experienced in that lunchroom than not, right? And so we have to recognize all of that, piece. But I get worried sometimes when we highlight that one issue, like, oh yeah, this guy, 3 million views, right? Like, no, what about the folks? There was no camera,
Right.
There was no thing. This is just their daily experience, right? And so sometimes I know how things get sensational. Not that it shouldn't be, like we should talk about it, but I always just want to caution us that it's the silent, muted child that probably experiences that and worse. And they get no recognition about that experience itself, and not enough of us are doing what we can to change it. So appreciate y'all diving into tough topics. And as I said, these could be multiple shows rolled out on all of the different things that we surfaced. Folks who have not been to the website, www.8BH stands for 8 Black Hands. Check it out. You can download on code right there on the site, and we'll continue to develop this platform out and be a place of community, because that's one thing that you all have showed us, that you can build community wherever you have love for your people. And so I'm grateful for this platform, 8 Black Hands, and the community that's being built by these brothers and you all. So thank you all for being here, for being a part of the show, and have a great week.